Penguin Random House Canada presents Look Ma, No Hands, a Chronic Pain Memoir by Gabrielle Drolet, read for you by the author. For Kira, Ruby, and Summer, who have filled my life with so much love. First date. The man sitting across from me wore a Batman t-shirt and an old baseball cap, discolored and fraying at the edges. He was in the middle of saying something, probably about where he was from or what he'd studied in school, when the waitress came over with our drinks, interrupting him. Merci, I said, the word a little awkward and fumbled. I grew up in a francophone household in Ontario. My mom is from Quebec, so French was the language she raised me in. When I moved out after high school and started using it less, my French started to slip away. I didn't notice how much of it I'd lost until I moved to Montreal. I was still new to the city and felt almost scared to use the language here, as though a real Quebecer might call me out on being a fake one, hearing it in my hesitation and mispronunciation. I used French words the way an uncertain cook uses new spices, smattering them here and there, overthinking it, opting out entirely when I got too nervous. The man sitting across from me didn't thank the waitress at all. She walked away and he continued on with whatever he'd been saying before, though I barely listened. I just smiled along and said, or, oh, nice, in the right places. This was a skill I'd mastered over the many first dates I'd been on that summer, cooing and nodding in a way that kept the conversation rolling even when I had lost track of it. We were at a rooftop bar, which is the kind of thing that sounds fun and trendy, but is mostly unpleasant. The umbrella above us cast shade only onto his half of the table, so the sun beat down on my neck and shoulders. I wondered whether or not I'd remembered to put on sunscreen, and decided I probably hadn't. I could feel sweat gathered on my upper lip and under my arms. I became hyper-aware of the way my shirt clung to my back. Geez, you're downing that fast, the man said. What? He motioned to the drink I was holding, condensation beating on the outside of the glass. It was already half gone, and what remained was watery from melting ice. This was a bad habit of mine I'd never figured out how to drop. I always finished my drinks too quickly, just to have something to do with my hands. I got drunk faster than my friends on nights out, not because I wanted to, but because I was fidgety by nature. Oh, I laughed. Right. You must have been thirsty. I must have. We were both journalists, so I asked about that, prying into what exactly he covered, sports, and how he liked it, a lot. What about you? He asked. What kind of stuff do you write about? I weighed the question for a second before answering. This was a moment that always came up on dates now, a split-second decision where I negotiated how much of myself to disclose. As a freelancer, I cover a bit of everything, I finally said. Vague, but good, I thought. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. Like what? Health and culture, mostly. He raised his eyebrows and waited for me to continue. I took another sip of my rapidly vanishing drink. Lately, I've been writing about disability and accessibility, I offered. It's not the kind of work I expected to do, but I'm really enjoying it. Oh, cool. Good on you for covering that kind of stuff, he smiled. It's important. Thanks. I didn't say anything further, not wanting to get into it, wanting, instead, to change the topic. But, minutes later, when the conversation lulled, he steered it back towards my work. So, what made you interested in disability? He posed the question the way someone might ask a scientist about the odd, specific, mostly incomprehensible work they do. What made you want to study that, of all things? Becoming disabled, I said, too tired and tipsy to enter this conversation with the care I usually might. He didn't respond right away, so I rushed through the shortest possible version of the story. The one where, a year and a half ago, I'd developed a nerve condition that became chronic and disabling. Pain had spread through my neck, my arms, my hands. I explained how, when it had first started, I couldn't type at all. How I'd had to readjust every aspect of my life. How I'd eventually found accessibility tools I could depend on. How I got by all right, now. We don't talk about disability much, I said. Before becoming disabled, it was a topic I hardly knew anything about, so it feels special to write about it publicly, I guess. He sat back, his eyes wide with an expression I couldn't read. I avoided looking directly at him. Holy shit, he said. Yeah, I laughed, desperate to keep things lighthearted. It was a lot, but it all worked out. I mean, I live pretty comfortably, you know. I've gotten good at voice to text, my symptoms have improved. It's a lot better than it was. Holy shit, he repeated. Wow, it's so brave of you to keep on going. I looked at the shallow pool of melted ice in my glass. Thanks. When I tell people about my chronic pain, I've come to expect one of 3 types of responses. The first is to be overly sympathetic, repeating, "I'm so sorry that happened to you," over and over again. The second is to dole out advice they're not knowledgeable enough to give, suggesting CBD creams and vitamins and alternative therapies they've read about on social media. The third is to praise me as though, through the sheer act of being disabled, I've done something very brave and noble. How inspiring. Good for you. While these routes are all different, they share a commonality, which is that I have no idea how to respond to any of them. I generally just say thank you and reassure whoever I'm with that it's not a big deal, downplaying the whole situation and moving on. It seemed, at first, that this man was going with the third route, the "you're so brave and strong and we should erect statues of you" angle. However, he then shifted into a take I'd never heard before. Wow, I really can't imagine. He sighed deeply and shook his head. If I were you, I literally would have killed myself. What? I blinked at him, half hoping I'd heard wrong. If I suddenly couldn't type anymore, that'd be it for me. I'd crawl into a hole and die. He laughed, still shaking his head in disbelief. I laughed too, unsure how else to respond. What a thing to say, I thought. It's not so bad, I said. Around 6 months after my chronic pains started, a second big shift happened in my life. I went through my first big breakup, becoming single for the first time in nearly 4 years. This meant that I learned to talk about disability at the same time as I learned how to date again. While I got good at most parts of dating, choosing the right outfits, laughing at bad jokes, touching someone's arm while they spoke, I never discovered how to navigate this particular conversation. Pain now affected almost every part of my life, from how I cooked to how I worked to how I slept. It shaped my days, my home, my hobbies and interests. It felt impossible to talk about myself without mentioning the near constant pain I was in. Still, bringing it up was a gamble. It was the kind of information that usually altered the course of a date entirely, making it veer off the tracks of regular small talk. Do you have siblings? How long have you lived in the city? And towards more treacherous, dangerous territory. Is it permanent? Is that really a disability? The simple truth is that most people talk about disability so little that when it comes up, they become weird about it. Just be normal, I always wanted to say, but they didn't know how. I knew there was always the option of simply not mentioning my pain on the first date at all. That felt somehow wrong, though. So I mentioned it, making sure to laugh when I did, to wave my hand through the air as though it were nothing. And I watched closely for how people reacted, how uncomfortable they became. My glass was completely empty now. His was still half full. He laughed. I felt a little nauseous. He took a few big
Sample complete. Ready to continue?